Namaskar. So now we will move forwards, आगे बढ़ेंगे, and we will see that जब आप once you understood what are the different types of vrittis, praman, viparya, vikalp, nidra and smriti, what are the different understandings and different commentaries of those vrittis, ये सारी चीज़ें once we have understood everything, now this is the time to understand how to stop or inhibit or do nirodha of those vrittis. So in the first chapter, 12th shloka explains Abhyas Vairagyabhyam Tan Nirodha. So Abhyas, now what is Abhyas? So if you want to practice yogic sadhana or if you want to practice any sadhana, you need Abhyas of that. So tomorrow if you suddenly come and you ask that you have not achieved the sadhana or the aim or the goal of the sadhana, so it is because you have not done the Abhyas of that sadhana. So Abhyas has to be there in the sadhana, whether it is your studies, whether it is your life, whether it is your spiritual life. And Vairagya also is very important, because unless and until you develop Vairagya, you will be attached to these vrittis, and these vrittis will cause the kleshas. Because once you are attached towards these vrittis will give you pains which are explained in the form of kleshas in yoga. So Maharishi Patanjali says Abhyas Vairagyabhyam Tan Nirodha. Now what is the meaning of Abhyas? Abhyas ka matlab hai practice. What is Abhyas? Abhyas means practice or repetition. Vairagya is total non-attachment. Bhyam means through the two, tat means that, nirodha, complete cessation. So by the practice and the non-attachment or detachment, by practice of this two, you reach the stage of nirodha. So the nirodha or the complete cessation of that vritti or whichever vritti you are trying to control is through the practice of these two, Abhyas and Vairagya. So if you want to achieve the success in the field of yoga, if you want to achieve success in any field, not just in yoga, you have to have Abhyas. If you are a student, you need a regular Abhyas of your whatever things are taught to you. And repetition is very much important, because whatever you have studied, Abhyas of that is very much important, because unless and until you do Abhyas, unless and until you do Atmasat of that particular practice, you cannot become master of that practice. You will not be eligible to teach. Today most of the people, they just read some things, they add few things and they start teaching. So that is not the eligibility. The actual eligibility is with your Abhyas, with your regular practice, and how that Abhyas should be there, that we will see later. But with your regular Abhyas or with your regular repetition of the practices, with non-attachment, without any attachment or expectations from that practice also, we have to perform the Abhyas so that we get the success. So the practice and detachments are the means to still the movements of consciousness. So if you want to completely still the movements of your consciousness or the chitta, or if you want to completely stop the vibrations which are happening inside the chitta because of the vrittis, you have to have a practice of regular practice of Abhyas and Vairagya. Now this Abhyas, when you talk about Maharishi Patanjali's Yog Darshan, so here Abhyas is of Yam Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi. So today what is happening, that most of the people, everybody around you, or most of the people, those who teach you also, according to them yoga is nothing but just one few asanas, and few, that also not in the form of asanas, some jumping jacks, and then some breathing practices. But that is not yogic practice. It is one drop of, not even one drop of the yogic practice, because unless and until you practice the whole Ashtanga yogic sadhana, Ashtanga yoga sadhana, you cannot say that you are practicing yoga. So the practice or abhyas of yam niyam, the practice and abhyas of asan, the practice or abhyas of pranayam, pratyahar is very much important, because unless and until you have pratyahar and you start practicing antaranga yoga, that is dharana, dhyan and samadhi, you cannot develop detachment or non-attachment, because if you are under the influence of this vrittis, you will be always attached to the external world, and you will see there is always a problem in your life in the form of kleshas. So the discipline of these thoughts is by repetition and by non-attachment. So if you want to completely stop, or if you want to completely inhibit the vibrations in the sphere of the chitta, you have to have a discipline of repetition of the practice and discipline of non-attachment. Now this together will lead to the contemplation and a contemplative life. So when you regularly together start practicing abhyas and vairagya of the sadhana, whichever school you are following, then only there is a chance of any success in that sadhana. Both abhyas, that is your repetition, and vairagya, that is non-attachment, will be defined. Now we have already defined this, but you have to always remember that this abhyas and vairagya is very much important for the progress of yoga. Unless and until you have abhyas of yamas and niyamas, you are not eligible to even practice properly the asanas, because while doing the asanas, if these yamas and niyamas are not followed properly, you may harm yourself. So it is very much important that yamas and niyamas have to be followed. Now initially these two are repetitions of what helps one's progress in yoga, and non-attachment towards what hinders. So we have to have abhyas of a klisht type of sadhanas which are helpful for the practice of yoga. So which are not painful, which will help you towards the practice of yoga, and non-attachment towards the klisht sadhanas or klisht things. So you have to have a repetition of all the practices which help you in the progress of yoga, and you have to have non-attachment toward the practices which can have an adverse effect, or which can create an obstacle for you towards the path of yoga. So abhyas and vairagya is very much important, and I have seen it that this particular shloka, that is abhyas vairagya abhyam tanirodha, is given very least important, because people think that abhyas and vairagya if you do, but what exactly is abhyas and what exactly is non-attachment has to be understood properly. Now that is the reason I am giving you in detail insight about what is abhyas and what is vairagya. So abhyas of all the practices, yamas, niyamas, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, everything has to be practiced sincerely. And then these things will take you towards the goal of yoga. This will take you towards the ultimate aim of the practice. Now, when I talk about yoga, it is not the asanas. You have to always remember, if you want to be called as a yoga acharya or a yogic sadhak, see that you are practicing everything, Vairagya yoga also and antaranga yoga also. Otherwise, it is just going to be like an exercise. So, a repetition of the practice which helps you in the progress in the path of yoga is your abhyas, and non-attachment to the things around you, to the practices around you, to the people around you who are going to be an obstacle in the path of yoga. So abhyas and vairagya is very much important, because unless and until you do this, unless and until you practice this, you will not be able to achieve the total cessation or inhibition from the vrittis. You forget about praman. Praman is the right knowledge, but from the viparya, vikalp, nidra and smriti, if you want to completely stop that or disintegrate that, and you don't want the impressions of those vrittis also in your chitta. So you need a regular and very strong abhyas and vairagya in your sadhana. It should not be a superficial type of sadhana where you just want to show it that you are doing it. It has to be absorbed totally from your soul, so that you don't have the impressions also inside your chitta that you had this viparya, vikalp, nidra and smriti. And remember, if you are under the influence, or if you are under the influence of this chitta vrittis and you have kleshas, you have pains because of these vrittis, which are always associated with your chitta vikshepas and sabhavas, you have to always remember that you are not a yogi. So a person who meditates regularly, a person who practices regularly will have a different aura totally. Will have a different, because see, a person who is meditator, he will see meditation in every being. He will try to give meditation in every being. He will not have any enmity for anybody, because his practices will not allow him to do that. And he will try to practice everything inside and outside also. So it is very important that abhyas has to be done with the proper full commitment. Now vairagya. We know very well that there are people those who will say ki are chodo yaar, we cannot this yogic practice is not for you. Or there are people those who will say that yoga doesn't have any value. Those who don't know anything about yoga, like 20-30 years back, when I started thinking of doing something in the field of yoga, people said the same thing. But your abhyas and your experience gives you the clear path that yes, no, this is the path which I have to choose, and this is going to change the life of many people in the future. So you have to have a regular abhyas. And vairagya, now vairagya or non-attachment, so you have to totally just have a non-attachment with all the words which are going to be obstacles for you. You have to have a non-attachment with the people, those who totally go against you or who say anything wrong against the path of yoga or against anything which can hinder your development in the field of spirituality. See, this is a sadhana. Maharishi Patanjali never said that if you do japa of Sawa Karod, many people in the past have told me that show me God or show me this. Many people have realized also under the sadhana which I taught to them. But here, what is important? That unless and until, he says very clearly that how you have to do the sadhana. He has explained in the coming sutra, we will understand that. So there is no fixed time duration, and you get the success in your sadhana based on your karmic imprints. Whatever, see, if you try to harm somebody, if you are associated in harming somebody, or if you are one of the reasons for somebody's life which is getting spoiled, or it has got spoiled totally, so everything, you may not accept the reality because you are under the influence of vrittis and the kleshas, and you are highly egoistic at that particular time, but it has stopped your development. So abhyas has to be totally for your practice and non-attachment with this type of people, those who can become a hindrance or those who can become a obstacle in the path of self-realization. So abhyas has to be in that way. It is not just abhyas and vairagya, two words. This is very important and very essence of life, and every yoga student has to understand the meaning, deeper meaning of abhyas and vairagya. Vairagya doesn't mean leaving the people. You can stay with the person, but that person's words or his actions should never have an impact on you. You have to go with your own path, but without getting disturbed by this people. So this is about the Abhyas and the Vairagya. Hope I have made the things very clear. I know many people are watching my videos, because even my other videos also, but what I see, most of you are not subscribing it, you are just seeing the video. So subscribe the video so that others also can get benefit, and share it if you feel that really this is going to help the other people. So this is about Abhyas and Vairagya. So now next we will go for the next shloka, which talks about what is Abhyas, what is the meaning of Abhyas, and what is the meaning of Vairagya. So next we will go for that.